Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, planet Earth is still recovering from that monster Game 4 from Shohei Ohtani, where he had those 3 home runs plus an incredible pitching performance as well. But is his $700 million contract, Renee, actually a bargain? So to dive into that and so much more of these baseball playoffs, let's bring in June Lee, baseball reporter and analyst. June, good to have you as always. Before we get into Ohtani's money, let's just talk about what an incredible game that was, that Game 4 against the Brewers. Is that one of the best baseball performances we've ever seen, ever?
I don't think it's a debate that it's the best baseball performance we've ever seen. I think the debate is actually about whether or not it's the greatest athletic performance we've seen for an individual athlete in professional sports history. Because this is a guy basically who's playing 2 positions at the highest possible level in a clinching game to send the team to the World Series. It'd be like if Patrick Mahomes had 3 touchdown passes and also had a sack and also had an interception. Like, that's something that just doesn't happen in other sports. It's not even possible for something equivalent to happen in basketball. And so that's what I think really elevates the legend of all of this performance. Like, I was walking around New York City this past weekend, and you can hear people just talking about Ohtani's performance. I feel like that's when you know something has really kind of hit the zeitgeist and transcended sports in some ways.
Yeah, and June, I'm curious because when the Dodgers signed Shohei Ohtani to that 10-year, $700 million deal with a lot of deferred money, you look at what has happened since then. On the field, acquiring other Japanese superstars like Roki Sasaki and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, but off the field, the partnerships, the food, the concessions, what they've done at Dodger Stadium, staff they've hired. I'm curious your thoughts with that historic deal. When we now look back, how much of an economic impact has Shohei Ohtani already made for the Dodgers? And when you look at the return on investment, is it essentially, as Baker mentioned earlier, a bargain for what he's brought on and off the field?
Yeah, the Dodgers, according to multiple sources, made back the entirety of that $700 million contract within the first season of Ohtani being in Los Angeles. And he's created this entire economy within the city. 90% of tourists who go to Los Angeles from Japan are going to a game at Dodger Stadium. And at the same time, tourism to Los Angeles from Japan is also up 90%. And so we've seen this massive boost in interest in Los Angeles as a city because of Shohei Ohtani being on the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think it's also important to note, too, that Shohei Ohtani was in Anaheim. It's just that the Anaheim Angels weren't maximizing the marketing opportunities behind Shohei. And so when you go to Dodger Stadium today, it's fascinating to see the number of tourist groups that are coming from Japan to watch a Dodgers game. You'll see lines of Ohtani jerseys just sitting in seats from Japanese tourists. You go to the concession stands, there's Japanese food there. One of the official beers of the Dodgers is Japanese. And you go to the merchandise team store, and half of the stuff there is either Shohei Ohtani stuff, Yamamoto stuff, Sasaki stuff, some of it's in Japanese. It's absolutely crazy how much of the Dodgers experience now revolves around catering to the Japanese fans. And on top of that, if you look at MLB's international ratings over the course of the last year, 2.7 million fans were the average viewing audience for an MLB game in Japan this past season. If you compare that to the NFL, which, in the eyes of most Americans is the biggest sport in the world, in the country, when the NFL broadcasted an international game on YouTube just a few weeks ago, it had 1.7 million fans globally outside of the United States. MLB is averaging twice that basically in just Japan alone because of Shohei Ohtani and the growing interest that Ohtani has brought to Major League Baseball within that country.
Wow, that's so incredible to sort of look at all of that. And of course, this is all happening as the Dodgers are awaiting who they're going to be playing, as we got a delicious Game 7 tonight between the Blue Jays and the Mariners. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think, let's just say hypothetically, if the Blue Jays end up prevailing here, we get really an international World Series here?
Yeah, and this is the direction that Major League Baseball hopes the entire sport goes. I mean, I think Seattle does have the flair of the international touch as well, especially given the history of Ichiro there. And so I wouldn't completely downplay that. And that would be a great story for the franchise there to win their first World Series ever. But Major League Baseball as a whole, and this is true across, I think, all the major sports leagues in the United States, their vision is to go global. It's to recreate the Premier League model with all the major sports leagues in the United States. And where the Premier League is now, one of the most popular sports leagues for people under the age of 35 in the United States, they want to be the same thing to young people around the world. That's why there's been so much emphasis across all the sports leagues to play games globally. And Ohtani, I had a Major League executive tell me this a couple years back. when we're talking about MLB's vision for a global sports league with baseball, Ohtani is their entire international growth plan. He's what they view as their Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo type of growth figure, the type of athlete where you don't even need to hear him speak a word or know anything about his personality to understand why what he's doing is so transcendent, because he's doing two sports at once. I mean, I was seeing clips on TikTok and on social media over this past weekend where there are people who aren't baseball fans who are just like, I got to tune into the Shohei Ohtani guy because it seems like he's doing something that we've never seen before, and people being jaw-dropped that he throws 100 miles per hour and painting on the black while also hitting 3 homers. That's the type of effect that Major League Baseball hopes that Shohei Ohtani has on the future of the sports. It's pretty similar, I think, to the effect that Babe Ruth had when he was touring the world in the early 1900s, being an ambassador for baseball. I think Shohei Ohtani, beyond just being Babe Ruth on the field for a new generation, is also going to be that figure that helps grow baseball globally in the age of the internet.
Yeah, Ohtani undoubtedly the Babe Ruth of our era, as you have the reigning champs in the Dodgers going to the World Series with a chance to defend their title. I'm curious, when you look bigger picture, now last season's Yankees-Dodgers was the highest matchup in terms of two teams that have faced off the most in the World Series. This year we're getting, regardless who comes out of the AL, it's either the Mariners seeking their first ever World Series title or the Blue Jays trying to get back for the first time since '93. So many individual storylines between Cal Raleigh and Vladimir Guerrero. Of course, on the other side, Babe Ruth, a.k.a. Shohei Ohtani, awaits them. How good is this even for baseball that you have one team that's run through the NL pretty much untouched, and on the other side, two teams grinding it out to a Game 7 in terms of balance, parity, household names, and superstars of what this World Series matchup can bring?
I think baseball is in an incredible place right now. And that's what really makes me worried about the upcoming collective bargaining negotiations that are going to come up in a few years. And there's all this talk about whether or not the players are going to get locked out, because baseball, between the pitch clock, between Shohei Ohtani, between just the number of exciting young teams around the sport, is in an incredible place from a storytelling perspective. I think that baseball hasn't had this type of national relevance, international relevance, in maybe since the steroid era. We're in a completely new, interesting era of baseball storytelling, of games being really fun to go to and to watch on television. And so there's all this opportunity right now for baseball to continue growing. As someone who loves baseball, it's been very, very exciting to see, just seeing more and more people get interested in the sport over the last few seasons. And so I think that baseball overall is in a great place. And I think, for all of the complaints that myself included had about Rob Manfred over the years and how he's managed the sport and how he's, managed collective bargaining negotiations with the players, his legacy, I think, at the end of the day, when he eventually does retire, is going to be these rule changes, and it's going to be helping set up baseball to grow over the course of the next 2 decades or so as an international sport. And we'll see what happens with the collective bargaining negotiations between the players and the owners, because there's all this conversation around whether or not the Dodgers are ruining baseball. I think it's good for the sport to have people to root against, and having an enemy like the Dodgers is something that's good for the storytelling of baseball. We've seen this with the Patriots. We've seen this with the Cowboys in the 90s. We've seen this with the Golden State Warriors. Having that arch villain is a good thing for the sport, even if in the moment people feel like their teams don't have a chance to win.
Either way,
can be good.
Very true.
Point.
And by the way, makes great television,
Yes.
great games as well. June, good to have you here as always. June Lee, baseball reporter and analyst. Thanks again for joining us, June.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, we've got a lot more Front Office Sports today headed your way, everyone, right after this quick break.